This is the Princess F45, the first rung on the Princess Flybridge ladder. Now the boat's been out a little while, but we finally caught up with it, and today we're going to do a full tour and a sea trial. Now prices for this boat with the larger of the two IPS engine options start at £762,000 including VAT. But this boat with options such as the hydraulic bathing platform, sliding transom seating, air conditioning and a generator is just over £970,000 including VAT. Now before we have a look on board, let's see what it's like from behind the helm. Now this is only the second IPS Flybridge boat that Princess has built, and there were two options on this boat. You can have IPS 600, which is a pair of 440 horsepower Volvo D6s, or you can have what this boat has got, which is IPS 650, which has a pair of 480 horsepower engines. And if it were my boat, I would probably opt for those larger motors. We don't have much kit on board today. We do have a full water tank and 50% fuel, but we've got no cruising gear and no tender, and we just about cracked 30 knots flat out, so performance isn't blistering. However, that doesn't really matter because this boat is so happy in the low to mid 20s that is where you're going to spend your life cruising. 22 to 25 knots, maybe a little bit quicker if you want. There's really no penalty when it comes to range. You're looking at a fast cruising range of around 200 nautical miles, maybe a little bit over that, but it's quiet, it's refined, and there's been a bit of chop out here in pool today and the hull just hoovers it up as if it's not there. It really is a very comfortable cruising companion. And one of the things you notice most from this lower helm is just how quiet it is. That's no great surprise though when you look inside the engine room, which is absolutely covered in sound insulation. Of course, you can also shut the cockpit doors, and it being IPS, the engines are about as far back in the hull as they can possibly be. So the overwhelming feeling from this helm is serenity and relaxation. As good as IPS is when it comes to efficiency and refinement and of course packaging on the lower deck, the handling isn't quite as tenacious as this boat's predecessors, the 42 and the 43. They were shaft drive boats and they handled like sports cruisers. This boat just doesn't quite have that edge. It's lovely and easy to steer though. The steering is beautifully light and positive, and it turns okay, don't get me wrong, but it's just not quite got that bite that its predecessors had. Having said that, really not what this type of boat is about. It's about comfortable, safe, straight line cruising, and when it comes to that, the F45 feels really good. One area where there can be very few complaints is the design of the dashboard itself. It's elegant, it's clearly presented, everything feels high quality. It's a really nice job. I love the shape of this bench. It's a two-person bench that slides fore and aft, but it's nice and supportive as well. It's not completely flat and shapeless. You can be held in by these nice curves on the backrest. Everything is beautifully clearly presented in these twin Garmin MFDs, which are endlessly configurable, so you can show whatever information you want on there. I like that the wheel is thrust out towards you, so it's nice and close. It's adjustable as well, so you can make yourself more comfortable that way. The throttles and the IPS joystick both fall to hand really easily, and there's a little run of rocker switches under here. They're easy to use, so you can get to the regularly used items nice and quickly. A couple of cup holders here. You've also got a charging point, and it's nice that you've got this shelf here, so you can drop a VHF or a phone down there as well, and you know they're going to stay in place. The view is very good as well. It's a single piece windscreen, but that doesn't mean it's got huge mullions either side. The view either side of the edge of the windscreen is also very good, and actually the all-round view is excellent as well. There's one black mark. It would be that some of this boat's rivals, like the Sea Lion and Galleon, have got helm doors next to the helm. This boat obviously hasn't got one of those, but you have got windows on both sides so you can ventilate and talk to your crew that way. But as good as the driving position is downstairs, this is where you want to be. The engines are a distant hum, you can hear the water peeling off the hull, and you're in touch with the elements. It's what Flybridge boating is all about, and it's particularly good on the F45 because the driving position again is so good. You've got everything repeated pretty much that you've got downstairs. So again, you've got two big Garmin MFDs, you've got your IPS joystick, you've got the bow thruster, you've got a little run of switches as well for the major items you need, but the position is so comfortable too. There's full adjustment fore and aft on this seat. The wheel adjusts as well, so whatever shape you are, you're going to be able to get comfortable here, and I like the fact that you can sit back in your chair with the support of the backrest and reach everything really easily, even down to the fact that there's space between the navigator seat and the helm chair so that the navigator can slide out the way without disturbing the helmsman. It's a really well thought out and well sorted driving position. Princess's relationship with Pininfarina is well established, but its curvaceous attitude to design is really noticeable here at the back of the F45, particularly the Flybridge overhang, which is usually just a bit of a slab left undesigned, but this looks wonderful. There's some really nice shapes being created back here, and I love the blue highlighting that runs all the way around the superstructure. It's lovely back here as well at the transom. See how it's scalloped out here, so the tender, which sits on this hydraulic bathing platform, can butt right up to the back of the transom, a bit of protection from this overhang here. Now, as standard under this lid, you get some storage, a deep well with a drain in it so you can put wet clothes or lines in there. But as an option, you can have this barbecue grill, and it's a really good option on this size of boat because you don't want this gobbling up space in the cockpit. So to have it here where cooking smells are drifting away from the boat, the person cooking is still involved in the conversation, is a really clever piece of design, and that continues inside the cockpit. The design of this boat isn't overly flamboyant. It's simple and it's effective, and it's stuff, little details like the boarding gate here. You just push it to open it. You don't have to wrench it up or play with the catch. You push it and it's closed. Simple stuff, but it isn't always like that. Rope bins down here built in, teak tread here, lovely teak steps up onto the side decks, and these nice integrated teak steps up to the Flybridge as well. And you've got this handhold that falls to hand here. This is a really nice shape, and they haven't closed off the port hand side of the boat, so you can get down to the bathing platform from both sides. Yes, there's more space this side, but it's always useful that you can get up from either side of the transom. And the table, really high quality, folds out obviously, but what's neat is that when it's folded back, you've got a built-in handhold here, but that's also what this leaf rests on when you open it up. And one of my favourite features of the cockpit is this little seat here. That will be such a nice place to sit, protected by the superstructure, especially when you're on passage looking out at the wake streaming out from under the bathing platform. That would be a great spot to travel in. And then it joins so nicely with the saloon. These doors open right over to port, flat floor here, no threshold to trip over, and then it's nice how it's teak into the galley, so if you want to come in here with wet feet or wet shorts to get something from the fridge or the galley, you're not going to make the carpet wet. It's not enormous, but again, it's cleverly designed. Storage is pretty good, like the fact that you've got proper cutlery tray here, everything is on soft close runners as well, and again, it's the small details that stand out. So if I take this lid off, not only is there a chopping board built in underneath, but if I open this cupboard, there's a proper slot for it down here, so that heavy piece of countertop is out of the way and you've got a nice deep sink there. Samsung cooking, there's a dishwasher as an option on this boat as well, and then much like the Ferretti 500, all of your cooling space is on this side. These are identical fridge and freezers. Nice to see two of them, got plenty of cooling space, freezer in the top. For a boat of this size, considering you've also got a cool box on the Flybridge, that should be pretty good cooling space. More details, storage here, big deep lockers that open out like that, really nicely made. Again, nice soft close runners. And even though there's not a huge amount of storage in the galley itself, if you come up these couple of steps here, you've got dedicated storage for all the boat's crockery, all held in place so it doesn't move and rattle around when the boat's at sea. Simple stuff, but really well executed by Princess. Up here into the dinette, this drops down to become a berth. There's an infill cushion, these are telescopic legs, so you can drop this table down, a couple of cushions, you've got another double berth as well as the two cabins down below. And then obviously we get to the helm station, which of course we've been through in detail at sea. But one other thing to point out while we're here is the switching panel is really well located. Underneath this wooden panel here, you've got everything you need for the boat system. You can switch between shore power and generator here. You've got your tank levels, you've got switching for the DC 24 and 230 volt system. Really clearly presented and easy to get to. Now let's go downstairs and have a look at the accommodation. And one of the major differences between this boat and its predecessor, the 43, is the layout of this lower deck. On that boat you had the galley down, of course that is now up on this boat, which means that this lower deck is purely dedicated to accommodation. And because it's IPS, there's lots of space down here. And the VIP cabin behind me, that's en suite to the day heads, and then you have the master cabin amidships. But first, let's have a closer look at where the guests sleep. Down here you really feel the embrace of the craftsmanship aboard this boat, especially with this lovely satin walnut woodwork, and you notice that the eye level lockers and the timber running all the way around at eyeline level has matching grain, so it all runs into each other. Really fine detail and attention to it from Princess. Other things to note, you have the split berths, so you can have them as two singles, or you can just pull them together like that and you instantly have a double. Just gives you a bit more versatility forward here. Note also you don't have to lift up mattresses and locker lids to get to storage down here. You've got some drawers, really easy to access, nice and deep, a couple per berth. It's also nice to see that they've managed to work your bureau into here as well, so you've got somewhere to get dressed and ready for the night. I'm in the dayhead / VIP ensuite now, and I hope it shows just how generous the proportions of the accommodation on this boat are. I mean, look how much room I've got above my head, the size of this shower cubicle, and I know I sound like a stuck record, but the quality is just so good. The Perrin and Rowe fixture fittings, the finish of the top here, the mirrored cabinet doors that open to reveal deep storage with fiddled edges. It just goes on and on. And if we cross the lobby, you get to the master cabin. First thing you see, the ensuite. Use the sliding door so that you have as little room gobbled up by the door as possible, and it's finished to just as high standard, of course, as the dayheads. And then you're down into the cabin proper, and though you haven't got full standing headroom all over this cabin, it's okay here in the lobby. You notice there's some changes of floor levels to account for that. Someone of 6 foot can sort of just about stoop to get around the bed. It really does cut down a fair bit around the sides, but even with this lovely swooping headliner, you could still set up in bed and read a book or the iPad. I like the fact you've got this sofa here just to recline on right by the big hull windows that of course you've got both sides, and there's a nice amount of storage in this cabin. Got this big unit down this side where you've got drawer storage, and you've got hanging lockers on both sides. Television is mounted here, great position obviously so you can see it inside bed, and then behind the door here is where you find a washer and dryer. The side decks are one of the few minus points on the F45. They're just a bit narrow and pinched, especially towards the aft end, so you'll sort of have to shuffle your feet past them. That said, there is a nice tall tow rail. You of course have the guardrail to hand, and it's nice that they've included this rail along here, so even though you sort of feel a bit pushed out by the superstructure, at least you've got this to steady yourself as you move forward, and then things improve as you move onto the foredeck. Because it's another case of simple but effective design, this is just a good place to sunbathe. You have built-in headrests here. The cushions are really nice material, hard wearing but feel luxurious. Teak inlays here, the cup holders have got stainless steel around the edge, and you've got a handhold down here as well as the guardrail. Flattens off nicely towards the bow as well. And I always talk about anchor lockers when I get up here and how they should be done, and this is a pretty good example. Fires open on a gas assisted ram. You've got rubber seals here as well so it doesn't rattle, and you've got a deck wash as well so you can hose off these lines, especially with the Mediterranean. This area can get really filthy, so to have a freshwater connection there is really useful. If I could ask for one thing, it would be something to tie fender lines to, because this is a nice deep locker where you naturally will want to drop fenders. Because there's nothing on here to tie them to, you could lose the lines in the locker. Everything else pretty good. So on to the Flybridge, and it's a really nicely proportioned area. Again, it's a simple layout, but it's just so effective. You've got a nice wrap of seating here. This table doubles in size. Again, notice how this becomes the stand for this. You've got built-in cup holders here, but it goes to a really good size when it's fully open, and you've got places to put your fingers to lift it up like that. Really nice. Wet bar here. Notice how all of these mouldings nice and curved. You've got a handhold here, looks really good. It's just plonked there like a big slab of plastic. You've got a top loading fridge here, quite useful. It's not enormous but perfect to chuck a few drinks in there, and then as an option you have the grill up here, and of course a sink so that you can do a bit of washing up. Now this area here forward is familiar to most Princess Flybridges. They all have this mechanism where this seat squab slides out. You have an infill cushion so you can make this into a bigger sun pad, but it's a nice position anyway, and it's nice that you can have two people sitting facing forward as well as a navigator when the boat is on the move. And there's no hardtop option on this boat, thank goodness, but you can have a bimini that pops up so you have a bit of shade if you're using it in really hot weather. So there you have it, that's the Princess F45, and it may be the first rung on the Princess Flybridge ladder, but it is by no means the poor relation, thanks to its style, its volume, its attention to detail, and its behaviour out on the water. In fact, I'd go as far as saying that this is one of the best boats that Princess has ever built. Thank you very much for watching our review of the F45. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you get a notification every time we upload a new video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.